Metaphor ReFantazio is a gem of a game, created by the same people behind Persona and SMT, so you know it's a pretty difficult game. But what if I make it a bit easier? By gambling, that is. You see, in Metaphor, one of the archetypes you can unlock is known as the Merchant, and its signature move, Gold Attack, costs $500 to use, but in return it has a very high crit rate. So now allow me to ask the question, can you beat Metaphor ReFantazio with only the Merchant line of archetypes? Now, before I, start this challenge, I first need to unlock the Merchant archetype, which means I gotta play a little bit into the game. So think of this part as a prologue to the challenge. After getting kicked off a cliff by the big bad, I'm asked by my fairy companion if I remember our mission, to which I don't remember. So after hearing a watered down version of it, it was time to enact the plan. Step 1, enlist into the Royal Guard. Step 2, befriend the token hot guy. Step 3, don't die. And that last step is a difficult one too, but thankfully I'm the protagonist in a JRPG. So I awaken to a magical power that makes this boss fight much easier. Both its legs and its wings are weak to wind magic, the only magic I have, so once I take those out, it starts eating its own fruit to heal itself. So I let my fairy Yukari deal with that, and after a couple more hits, I defeat it and save Stroll. Also while doing this, I complete step 4 in my plan, meet up with my informant and tell him to eliminate the target. Insert Griffith joke here. Anyway, the plan is to do it at the royal funeral, in broad daylight, in front of the whole city. It's a good plan, don't get me wrong, but in order to get to the funeral in time, we have to cut through an abandoned mineshaft. So we save that for tomorrow. And as I slumber, I meet a twinked up version of Igor and strike a deal with him. And this starts the full social link, the Seeker bond. So now I can upgrade that archetype. Then in the mines, we run into the guard captain that almost led us to our deaths. And he's kinda pissed that we're alive to, report his crime to everyone. We also learned that the guards captain was working with Louise, aka the big bad, and had a hand in the destruction of Stroll's village. And he kinda gets pissed at that. So pissed in fact that he awakens to an archetype, and this starts my second boss battle. Klinger will spawn with 2 guards to boost his defense, but they're very easy to take down. As for Klinger himself, he'll use fire magic, so I just have to hope he doesn't target Marth, who's weak to it. Then towards the end of the fight, he'll use a multi-hit attack, but it really doesn't do much, so Stroll is able to finish him off with 1 more hit. After this, I start the warrior bond with Stroll and the mage bond with Gallica. Now the game forces you to choose an archetype for Grius, and because I don't have the merchant yet, I just settled with the warrior for now. I also give Marth the mage archetype for the next upcoming battle against this human. The human is weak to ice magic, that's the reason why I gave him the mage, and its only big scary attack is when it sets up Hyper and targets the front row, so you just flank to the back and it will miss. Other than that, it's nothing to worry about, and after one action sequence, we escape the cave and hitchhike to the capital for the funeral. And now here's where a lot of the story's plot starts, so prepare for some yapping. Louise floats down from the heavens just to be like Lamau, the king's dead. Anyway, here's a human corpse. I should be king, yada yada, and then the dead king comes back in rock form to be like, nah, I'm turning this shit into a game show. So now anyone can be king. And this pisses off both Louise and Forden, the other big bad. Then the assassination attempt happens, but because the king's magic is protecting the front runners, Grius gets stuck in it, and Louise, well, I think you get the picture. Now one of Luis's henchmen, Zorba, takes over the chapel to make some sort of weapon. So it's up to me and Stroll to stop him. But then we meet this red knight that apparently knows Grius, or Alces as she calls him. So we go to the chapel. But then the architecture of the building is like nah and collapses. But guess who's waiting for us in the catacombs? If you said Grius's animated corpse, you'd be correct. And seeing our friend in such a state causes Hulkenberg to awaken to an archetype. So I think you can guess what's about to happen. Grius will use 2 moves, a basic attack and Mocking Phantasm, a move that will target all party members, unless you use Knight's Proclamation with Hulkenberg, to which then the move will only target her. My strat for this fight was to use Knight's Proclamation with Hulkenberg, attack with Stroll, and use healing items with Marth, because I didn't have Seeker equipped on anyone. But after that, we call it a day, and plan to face Zorba tomorrow. Also, Hulkenberg agrees to join our party after we reveal that the prince is alive and well. Well, he's not really well, but I think you get the picture. Now, instead of going after Zorba, I instead take the request that Brigitte gives me, and that is to defeat this Manatar. Yeah, it's impossible. Even with all 3 of my party members being the mage archetype, to unlock the move Blizza, I only do a piss worth of damage before it knocks out a party member. So even though I didn't want to do this, the only way I could even start this challenge was to beat it on easy mode. And hell, even then I still had to get lucky enough for the Manatar not to knock out a party member in its first attack. But after trying a little harder, I beat the beast, and now I can start the merchant bond with Brigitte, and unlock the only archetype I'm allowed to use for the rest of the game. Now it's finally time to go over the rules. First off, I can only use the merchant or tycoon archetype. Other archetypes can be learned, they just can't be equipped. Secondly, I'm allowing other archetypes' moves to be used by the merchant, because I sure as hell need buffs and debuffs. And finally, from this point on, I must be on hard mode at all times. So with that stated, the prologue is all over, and the real challenge can begin. Now, I think it's important to go into more depths about why the merchant is so broken. Firstly, the move Gold Attack is a physical almighty move, so it's able to hit any enemy regardless of strength or weakness. Secondly, its critical hit rate. Gold Attack already has a very high chance to crit, but the merchant also increases your luck stat as well, so more physical moves will have a chance to crit as well. Third and final reason is that it doesn't cost HP or MP to use. Instead, it costs $500 in in-game currency. Now, I know what you may be asking. What if you run out of money? Well, by having the merchant equipped on the protagonist, you unlock the move Alchemy, which means you earn more money by defeating weaker enemies in the overworld. So you can easily grind money in the game this way. Now that the merchant is pretty much explained, let's talk about the first mini-boss of the dungeon. The mage captain will spawn with 4 skeletons, one of which being a spellcaster, so I target him because the merchant is weak to fire. After that, I do get unlucky with the mage boosting the skeleton's attack, and the critical hit lands on Hulkenberg, leading to the mage to boost their defense as well. Then after taking another skeleton out, I focus on the mage, and by doing Brigitte's bond, I unlock an Igniter to heal my whole party. But even after healing, Hulkenberg still gets taken out, but then the mage goes down, and after that, the fight is free for the winning. Now the second mini-boss is a bit harder, because they can curse the party, which means the party's HP will drain each turn. So when that happens, I just use the feature to reset the battle, which is not cheating by the way, it's an ability in the game itself, because my fat ass is not watching long ass cutscenes if I'm about to die. Anyway, I get lucky with my critical hits and take out 3 of them in a single turn, so it kinda became a sweep after that. Now all that was left was to face Zorba, and yeah, lil bro only got to summon a zombie, but trust me, Zorba got his revenge by animating the Hieronymus corpse. Now normally you can't hit the heart with physical moves until you break the creature's shell, but because Gold Attack counts as an almighty skill, I'm able to attack it from the get-go, and I almost had it if it wasn't for a single type of magic, light magic, the only other weakness the merchant has. So I need a way to make sure the human doesn't use that magic. But then it hit me, I could break its shell each turn, making it unable to attack for a turn. Then I was able to easily defeat the knights that it summons inside of itself. This sounds insane out of context, I'm aware, but that's where I made my mistake, because if the ambush fails, it will use Soul Scream for extra turns. So instead of attacking the knights, I focus on the heart, and deal enough damage to defeat the human. Now it's on to the reason why everyone calls this game a Persona clone, the free time events. Seeing as I already used a couple days to unlock the merchant, nothing really spectacular happens. I just kinda hang out with my current party members, and Brigitte. I also die a lot to this desert kitty, but that's not important right now. But what is important is the tournament for the throne. See, I told you this shit was a game show. Anyway, it's the church's way of more or less skewing the odds of becoming king in their favor, so like real life. Anywho, the first challenge in this game show is to bring the head of the largest beast you can find. So we completely ignore that and go after a person, because we're not like other girls. We just want to win Louise over so we can steal his secret formula. Then the pimp shows up. That's kinda all he does actually. So we accept the request to take down this ex-knight named Heisme for multiple kidnappings. Now you might be asking yourself, how will you travel to this new town to get this guy? Well, let me introduce you to the best character in this game. No, not her. Him. This is Nurus, and he's amazing, and we love him, and that's all. Well, actually it's not all, because I forgot to say he's the pilot to our gauntlet runner. Now that's all. Now before I can go and capture Heisme, I'm interrupted by a fight between Louise's man and the church's lapdog. And because we want to get closer to Louise, we decide to lend Big Pimpin' a hand. Now if you pay attention, you'll start to notice a pattern. That being, in order for me to win during this challenge, I need to start stacking critical hits, because if I don't land a critical hit in my first turn, I simply retry the battle again. Now you can't attack Glodell directly because of the king's magic, so in order to defeat him, you just need to attack his 2 guards. The only problem is Glodell himself. For the first 2 turns, he'll do nothing, but but on the third he'll heal and start going for light magic. Again, magic that the merchant is weak to. And really the only thing I can do is hope to get enough critical hits in before I wipe. There's no strategy for this run at all. It's simply just about gambling. For legal reasons, I gotta say this is a joke. Anyway, after the two guards go down, Glodell runs away, and then the big man shows himself and tells us he'll keep an eye out for us. So after a successful gambit, I start the gunner bond with Nuris. I also forgot to mention the two other bonds that I started, but if I forget to mention one in the future, just know that I probably started it because the bond system is very forgiving, unlike Persona. Anywho, now that we're in Martira, we get the details on Heismay's hideout. And where else would a big bad live other than a cave? In the desert, surrounded by giant worms. The human sandworm has the move Sandstorm. Very fitting. This move hits all and lowers your accuracy and evasion. But you don't have to defeat it in order to win. After you deal about 3/4 of damage to it, it will, it vores you. What do you want me to say? Then, after taking full advantage of critical hits in order to defeat this tapeworm, we escape. And this time we do the opposite of before, which was Vor. I'm sorry I brought it up again. Now inside the cave we meet Heismay, and I mean he's just a little guy. There's no way he could have kidnapped the town's children. Also there's the fact that he lost his own child too, so... Anyway, you fight Heismay twice, and both fights are the exact same. He attacks you, but he holds back because he doesn't want to kill you. So now comes the even bigger question. Who is the actual kidnapper? Well, if you guessed the somewhat rude partner of Barden, then you'd be correct. And then when Heismay finally saw what he was really doing with his own eyes, it caused him to awaken to an archetype. But because it's not the merchant, I can only use his basic attack in this battle. But luckily it isn't that hard, unlike another battle coming up later. Anyway, I start the thief bond with Heismay, and I explore the second dungeon. But nothing of note really happens, other than some chase scenes with the big baby thing. Speaking of the big baby thing, it turns out Joanna was keeping it because her real baby died due to racism. Insert American joke here. Anyway, it's time to punch a toddler. My first attempt goes really well. I'm able to land enough critical hits to get it to the second stage of the fight. Here it will take aim, and if you played any Atlus game before, you know that means to guard. After this though, you can start attacking its eyes. But because it's almost defeated at this point, I make the mistake of ignoring its gimmick, and to quote Gallica, she healed the demon baby. But that's not the worst move it has. That belongs to Deafening Din, a move that targets all and lowers defense. And if a party member gets hit after this move, they're down for good. My next attempt was better. One, because I actually targeted its eyes, so I had to use a turn to restore them. And two, it didn't go for Deafening Din once. Then when it came for it to get healed, it was nothing more than an annoyance. So I just kept the same strategy as before, gambling. And hey, it paid off. After this, Joanna comes to her senses and asks us to take her head instead of Heismay's. Now as we wait for the contest, I start two very important bonds that I have to mention. The first being the commander bond with Barden. Not only do I need the commander to get the tycoon, but it also gives me the move Formation of Vigor, a move that boosts all my party members' attack by 2 stages and moves them to the front line. And I know what you might be thinking. How can I level up an archetype if I have to keep the merchant equipped? Well, once an equipped archetype reaches max level, it will give you an item called the Hero's Leaf of Light that you can use to level up any archetype even if it's not equipped. Now with this new move, I managed to defeat this giant mimic. With it defeated, I unlock another archetype, the Trickster with Alonzo. And remember how I said Stroll was the token hot boy? Well, let's just say I retract my previous statement. I also get revenge on the Desert Kitty before I head off to Brylehaven with Johanna. And this causes 2 important things to happen. First off, I piss off the church because Johanna is a saint, or some other term for a holy person, I don't know. And secondly, Louise really liked that I pissed off the church, so now I'm a part of his little team, and I have access to his Skyrunner. So now all I have to do is steal a secret formula, but before I do, I have to clear a path for it. That requires me to defeat 3 mini-bosses, the first being Xanath. Now the difficulty comes in the form of a 3-turn time limit to defeat them, but because I can stack crits, it makes it way easier. My only problem during the Xanath fight was an unlucky crit to Stroll, but Marth survived the attack and knocked him out next turn. Next was this guy, and he was the worst one, because the fight starts off with Ear-Splitting Shriek, a move that will daze some party members. He also hits like a fucking freight train. My best choice was to reset the fight if more than one party member got inflicted with daze, because it's better if one party member misses than two. But even if they do miss, all it takes is just one unlucky crit. After some more trial and error, Heismay hits a crit even though he was dazed, and I managed to stack more crits, ending with Hulkenberg for a big fat heal. He uses ear-splitting shriek again, but no other party member was affected, and because I healed, I ensured that no party member would go down, so I was able to finish the drunkard off. For the final fight, you'll face a mage and a knight. The mage will use an almighty attack on the whole party, and the knight will just attack one party member. But because of the amount of damage the mage does, the knight will more than likely just knock a teammate out. So the best option was to keep resetting the fight until someone dodges the mage's attack. That way the knight won't get a turn. From here, I need to gamble on crits to knock out the mage, and once he's out, the knight soon follows suit. Now all we do is wait to break into Louise's room. During this time, not much happens, because I've started every single bond up until this point in the game, and the only bond that I max out is Strolls. I do get Brigida's to rank 7, but I have to wait a bit until rank 8. As for Barden, I get to rank 3 so I can unlock the general archetype. So now I can learn Shelter Formation, a move that raises the party's defense by 2 stages and puts the party in the back line. Other than that, I grind by doing optional dungeons and mini bosses. I would tell you about them, but I'm pretty sure you're aware of how I beat them. Now on the night of the soiree, I sneak into Louise's room. Well, sneaking isn't the right word for it because I'm forced to do this janky ass parkour section, but after that, I'm caught by Juna. But we realize she's undercover just like us, so everything's fine, and we even get the formula. What could go wrong? That's right, Big Pimpin'. Now this fight isn't hard, but because this is a merchant only challenge, it means I can only use an archetype with Marth, so Juna will just have to stick to her basic attack. Now at first I thought it'd be better to attack Hector, the dog thingy, but once you get him down to low health, Big Pimpin' will just spam healing moves. Then I realized that all I need to do to win is to defeat Glodell himself, and if I just stay in the back row, Hector can't do that much damage to me. So that was my plan, until I got hit by a crit, causing my anxiety to swell, and because of that, I accidentally used Formation of Vigor, bringing me into the front row. Then I go down, but then a stroke of luck hits me, because Hector misses Juna, so I'm able to bring back Marth, and after a couple more hits, Big Pimpin's over, and the King's magic gets to him. And yeah, now we have a mess to clean up. But luckily for us, there's a traitor in Louise's crew. Wonder who that could be. But we just blame Glodell, because I mean, he can't deny it, so yeah, you know, pretty good plan. And even though the 2 dogs are suspicious of us, Louise gives us the okay after some questioning, and Juna joins my party. So now it's time to break the prince's curse. For this, we go see Juna's sister Rella, to see if she can break the curse. And seeing as I'm making a second part to this video, you can guess how effective that was. After realizing that Louise's spells couldn't have broken the prince's curse, we were forced to wait. Luckily, our next opportunity came quickly, with Forden announcing the next trial of the game show. That was to steal another culture's prized artifacts. Just like the British, I see. Anyway, this pisses off Louise, because I mean, what doesn't? But he had a plan to continue this toxic game of yaoi between him and Forden. Louise wanted us to retrieve the lance known as Dracodios, but in order to do so, we need to travel to an entirely different island. So we really have no way of getting there. But then the man, the myth, the legend, Nuris puts our runner in water. I mean, I guess that's one way to do it. The only problem is that after the Glodell, aka Big Pimpin' incident, Louise has us babysit his dogs for him. So that kinda makes it harder for us to plan on taking him down. But they're not all bad because they managed to distract those humans' tentacles so we can take it down. And yeah, this fight was a little tricky. The only way I could survive its attacks was with Shelter Formation, a move that I only had on Marth. So I needed to get lucky enough to land critical hits with gold attacks so I could cycle back to Marth and use the move. But then halfway into the fight, Heismay fails to crit, so Hulkenberg goes down. And because I need to bring back the Berg, I didn't have time to heal my party. And with an unlucky crit on Heismay, my entire team goes down. Then on my next attempt, things were going fine until Squidward over here sprayed me in the face with his big fat ink sac. Anyway, because of that, I couldn't heal Marth or Heismay. Then next turn it goes for Soul Scream, and all my homies hate Soul Scream. But luckily Heismay is fast, so he was able to make Squid Games lose some turns. But it really didn't matter because next turn both Hulkenberg and Heismay are taken out. Now normally I probably would have resetted the fight at this point, but the boss was only one tap after this, so lucky me I guess. Then we make it onto the island, get arrested, learn that the priestess of the village is going to sacrifice herself, break out of prison, then we run into the priestess's brother so he can ask us to save his sister. Typical Thursday morning, am I right? Also the dogmen won't be joining us because the small angry one hurt his leg, or something, I don't know, and the himbo wants to stay back to take care of his little brother, even though the little one is the older one. But anyway, now onto the laggiest dungeon of the game. But before I can even enter, I have to fight this oak, and listen, I don't know when the damn Lorax became my biggest op, but something I did pissed him off because this tree wasn't being chopped down without a fight. Because not only did it hit hard, but it also had the move Raidene. I think that's how you say it. Anyway, this move healed it up by 400 HP every turn, and because it has 2 turns, it actually gets healed up by 800 HP each round. And my guys were only doing around 200 damage per hit, so I was literally getting nowhere. And after more trial and error, I took a step back and reorganized my party's inherited skills. So everyone had Formation of Vigor and Shelter Formation. I also had everyone learn the Faker archetype because it will be useful in the future, and because I need Faker's Roguery to cheese this fight. The move Faker's Roguery is a move that has the ability to add more turns on my round, so it's essentially gambling for more turns. The reason why I need this was because I needed more turns to set up my attack buffs to deal more damage, then use my following turns to stack critical hits so that I could finally ruin Mother Nature one tree at a time. After ripping the Lorax a new one, we enter the dungeon and save Yufa. And any sane, normal person would leave now after getting destroyed by a literal plant, but not us, because we gotta get that lance for Louise, because I mean he's so hot, I mean so we can get close to him so he can cure the prince. And other than the earlobe that wrecked my entire team, nothing really happened in this dungeon, other than lag of course. Then we make it to the lance and see that the dragon god is infected with a human. Also Yufa awakens to an archetype, probably should mention that, that's kinda important. Anyway, I thought this fight was going to be the run killer, mainly because both fights before it were extremely difficult. Also count in that Yufa has to be present during this fight, so that's one less party member who can attack. But to my surprise, it was a way easier battle. Granted, I did grind for a couple hours beforehand, but I was still able to do it in one try. I started off by targeting the human on the dragon's back, because by fighting it, it makes fighting the dragon after this a lot easier. And really the only moves the dragon went for was tail swipe and random buffs to itself, which before would have been a problem, but thanks to the Faker, I unlocked the move Dekaija to nullify enemy buffs. I also learned Rakunda to lower its defense as well. Then once the human was on low health, it will steal HP from the dragon to prolong the fight even more. So I decided to revive Yufa because even though she can't attack, I can make her use items to heal my party. Then finally after the human goes down, the only thing that really changes is that the dragon now only has one turn to attack. And even then, the dragon doesn't have that much HP compared to the human, plus once it gets on low health, it just stops attacking entirely. So this fight was more or less a test of patience rather than luck. But the fight doesn't end there, because after realizing that Yufa's entire sacrifice was never in the religion to begin with, the human escapes and heads towards the village. So now we face it in probably the easiest boss battle in the game. Because, and I kid you not, if you debuff the human and buff your party, the human will use its 2 turns to cast Dekaija and Dekunda. So by doing that, it will never attack you. And for proof, look at this unscathed triumph. Now that the village is saved, we can get the lance, correct? Well, kinda, because Yufa doesn't want the lance to leave her side, so not only do we get the lance, but we also get a new party member. You know what time it is now. That's right, free time. So I start off by starting both Juna's and Yufa's social link. I don't know what the correct term is, so I'll just stick with social link. Anyway, to start both of their social links, you'll need to defeat a dungeon boss. But because you already know how I beat them, I'll just skip over the filler. But important to note, I finished Alonzo's social link. So now I can unlock the Trickster archetype, which now means I can learn Vidyartha, which lowers an enemy's attack and defense by 2 stages. Then on the final day of our vacation, after Fidelio's nursed back to health, should probably have mentioned his name sooner, but oh well, we have a little island party. And you know I had to invite the goat Nurse with me, because my guy does not get enough screen time. Now you may be asking, why did Louise want this specific relic? Well, that's because this lance has the power to nullify the king's magic, so Louise plans to eliminate Thornton with it. And yeah, I can't really blame him, Forden is crusty as fuck. But because we want to save the prince, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Nurus make us a fake one to hand over to Louise. Then the plan is simple. Me and Yufa will sneak onto the chandelier during the middle of the opera to pierce Louise through the chest. Then with Yufa's magic, she'll retrieve the lance. Now the only problem is that Yufa will be the only party member I'll have for these guard fights. And because the guards are Forden's men, they target Yufa because, insert American joke here, the fights aren't hard, but because if Yufa goes down you automatically lose, it pretty much means Marth is the only one attacking while Yufa guards. Also, they have light magic, so yeah. But after that test of patience, I make it to the top of the chandelier, throw the lance, and I watch it as it pierces the twing through the chest. But we fail to strike his heart, so now we gotta face him in a duel. Luckily the lance wounded him, so he starts the battle at half health. And from there, I slap his ass with debuffs and smack him around with crits. And you might be wondering, if Louise is such a master of arms, how come he only uses 2 moves during this fight? And to that, I have to say, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, we eliminate Louise. And you would think that Fidelio and Basilio would be a little bit more pissed off that we blasted their master through the chest, but they just kinda seem mildly annoyed about it. And oh yeah, about the prince. Louise wasn't the caster, so we're back to square one again. But on the bright side of things, Louise actually survived thanks to MCR from the first dungeon. And he eliminates Forden. And say what you want about Louise, but he will forever be the GOAT for getting rid of Forden. All my homies hate Forden. Then he proceeds to point a laser at a family of 4. So maybe I spoke too soon, but before I can do anything about it, Fidelio and Basilio block the laser. And this causes Fidelio to, yeah, that's just gonna leave a mark, isn't it? And you know, Basilio's kinda pissed that the only family member he had is now gone. So after awakening to an archetype, I recruit the most broken party member in the game. Goodbye, Heismay, I never knew ya. Now it's time for a lore dump. So after the passing of Forden, Rip Bozo, you will not be missed, the church puts Rella, Juna's sister, as their new figurehead. And this pisses off Mr. Clean. I'm noticing a pattern of people getting pissed off in this game. Anyway, to stop him from attacking Rella, she casts a spell that looks a lot like the spell that was casted on the prince. And well, that's because it is the same spell. Because Rella is the caster. Because Forden wanted the prince gone because he was Elda. So now we have to eliminate Rella and her ice dragon. And oh my fuck, this fight, like, I can't even describe it. Okay, let's start with Frostbite, an ailment that will reduce your attack power. Now, it's not a matter of if you'll get Frostbite, because you'll get it. No ifs, ands, or asses about it. And if that wasn't enough, the dragon will spam Roar, which is debilitate for your whole entire party. So you'll be debuffed for this entire fight, whether you like it or not. Secondly, there's no use trying to debuff the dragon itself, because Rella will just use the Kunda over the slightest debuff. So you'll be stuck doing double-digit damage. Finally, because Rella is a member of the church, she'll use light magic to get an extra turn. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I'll just use Fiery Strike to hit its weakness. But if I do that, Rella will erect a quartz wall that blocks elemental attacks until it's broken. But I haven't even told you the worst of it, dear viewer, because once the dragon is on low health, once you think you finally defeated it, Rella will heal it back to full health, giving you a big fat middle finger in the process. Okay, so now on to how I won. I gave Hulkenberg and Stroll Makara Karen to repel an enemy's magic attack, and I kept Fiery Strike on Marth and Basilio. So the plan was to Makara Karen on Basilio so that when the dragon used Ice Breath, 1. Basilio wouldn't be affected by Frostbite, 2. The dragon's turn would end, and 3. The wall would break so I could strike its weakness again. Then when Rella fully heals it, she can no longer set up the wall, so it's free game to wail on the dragon until it finally goes down. Sogne the Icebound? More like Sog on these nuts. Yeah. Then after that, Rella makes an announcement that Forden was a bitch-ass motherfucker and that he set her up to get rid of the prince. Then she freezes herself over. But then we check the live prince reaction cam to see that the curse has been lifted. So now you would think we would go to Rush to see the prince. But because Louise challenges us to another duel, I gotta prepare for that. How do I prepare, you ask? Well, I start the final social link of the game with Basilio. I finish Hulkenberger's, Heismay's, and Maria's social links. Lorax. Why my autocorrect said Hulkenbergers, I will never know, but what I do know is that Louise didn't put up much of a fight. He pretty much uses the exact same moves as last time, but this time he has a fire sword. Now normally I'd be worried about this, but he's still doing the exact amount of damage he was doing before, so him having an extra turn was nothing to worry about. Then after 3/4 of damage was dealt, the fight abruptly ends, and Louise turns me into a human. Not cool. But what's even uncooler, that's definitely not a word, is the fact that Louise sent Fallout Boy to slay the prince, and by the time we get there it's already too late. But then through some Dragon Ball fusion mechanics, I become the prince. Or should I say I was always the prince. I was essentially the prince's OC come to life in the form of pure Magla, so that he could odyssey around the land. Then Gran over here gives us a lore drop about the Elda, but she's interrupted by Russell, shout out Russell, announcing that the assassin is in the area. So we catch up to Sunny Day Real Estate, and instead of fighting him, we face a human. More specifically, the very first human I fought in the beginning of the game. Now the only challenge I had during this fight was the fact that I was forced into using the Prince archetype, so I could only use my basic attack. But Stroll and Basilio made up for it by paying double to hit twice as hard. Also, like in the first fight, Gallica took care of the apples for me. I'll also say that not only does Basilio have one of the most broken archetypes in the game, and the highest strength stat, not counting the protagonist, but by doing his social link he'll unlock an ability that just allows him to dodge attacks, which is probably why he's one of the most broken teammates in the game, I think. Now, would I be a furry if wait, never mind, forget anything I said. Now after beating the human, I complete Gallica's social link, and head back to the capital city to see that everyone is pissed off again. Again, furthering my proof that everyone in this game is in a perpetual state of anger. And the reason for said anger is because Louise is affecting the flow of Magla from the royal castle, so we have to put an end to it. Now this is the final dungeon of the game. I know this because you're given an in-game month to prepare for it and the final boss. Now normally any other person would grind in the optional dungeons during this time, not me though. Instead, I focus on completing my social links, like for example Brigitte's social link so that I could finally unlock the Tycoon. And I know what you might be thinking, won't the Tycoon make this game a bit easier? Well, kinda. You do hit a lot harder, but its attacks also cost around the same price as the cost of living in the United States. But you do unlock critical trade and almighty boost, so it is a better investment than the cost of living in the United States. Anyway, on to a less depressing topic. I finished Katharina's, Nuris's, Juna's, Barden's, Yufa's, Moore's, and finally Basilio's social links. Yeah, it's not really hard to finish all the social links in the game. Now it's time to tackle the final dungeon of the game. And the first puzzle was me fighting not one, but two earlobe guys, to then unlock another mini-boss, so that I could beat it to be able to destroy the Magla crystal affecting the townspeople. There's really not that much to say about the mini-bosses either. Like, my team is pretty much stacked with everyone having access to Formation of Vigor and Shelter Formation. Basilio and Stroll both have Charge and Vidyartha, while Hulkenberg and Marth have Debilitate, Metacall, and Dikaija. Really the only issue I had in the dungeon was my own doing because I ran out of money, so I had to quit out and sell my mag to replace it. Anyway, before we could confront Louise, Jimmy Eat Worlds steps out of his basement to reveal that he's part human now. So now we gotta take down Rites of Spring in a battle. And yeah, it's not hard at all. When you have Basilio doing a 500 damage charge critical hit each round, the enemy really doesn't stand a chance. Even in his defense form where Pierce the Veil will just spam Heat Riser, I can still easily debuff him. So beating American football wasn't a problem at all. And after his defeat, he jumps. I don't know why, but goodbye Hawthorne Heights, you will be missed. At least more than Big Pimpin' was missed. After this, Louise gives his villain monologue, where he asks me to join him in his utopia. But I hit him with the iconic finger wag of shame, so he gets pissed. I lost count of how many times now, and creates a big cloud of Magla, where the final battle will take place. Now, on Tyrant Star, I need to do 3 things. Firstly, defeat the 6 optional human bosses. This is pretty easy though, because they're the exact same 6 human bosses you already fought throughout the game, so I can use the exact same cheesy tactics as before. Secondly, I need to beat up this guy, because he drops the weapon Fortune God's Abacus, which costs $7,500 to use and hits enemies 3 times as hard, but again, it's a better investment than the cost of living in the United States, yada yada. Finally, I need the gold to afford it, so I grinded up on these little tooth guys until I got enough money, around 3 million to be safe. My tactic was to beat them up, then when the big guy showed up, I'd run away to reload the area, then rinse and repeat that for a good 2 to 3 hours. Anyway, enough stalling, on to my bout with Louise. Now guys, hear me out. I mean, this first round was really easy. Like, lil bro only got to attack for 2 rounds before the first KO. Then he was so embarrassed by that he actually retreated. But don't worry, I caught up to him. All it costed was the lives of my allies, but I caught up to him, so now I can... What do you mean I died? What do you mean that the real world takes place in Persona 5? Anyway, more pretty much info dumps on me how staying in that world is bad, but because the baddie Nurse is there, I have to go back. Even if it means beating up more, which I do quite easily. Anyway, now that I'm alive again, as well as the rest of my party, don't ask me how they are, Louise gets pissed. So pissed, in fact, that he fully turns into a human. Now guys, hear me out again. I mean, this fight is pretty much another test of patience, because each turn he'll put a sacrificial doll in one of the mouths. So all you gotta do is wail on said mask until the doll is destroyed. And if he eats the doll, I actually don't know. I never let him eat one, so tell me down below in the comments what happens. I also use debuffs and buffs to my advantage, because he has like 5 turns, so if I debuff and buff each turn, it guarantees he'll use Dekaija and Dekunda, meaning he'll only attack twice because his final move is always going to be the sacrificial doll. But this phase is just a slow burner to whittle you down for the final phase. And you have to hear me out on this one, guys. Anyway, this phase doesn't have a lot of health, so it was easy to get him down to low HP. But once you get this phase to low HP, he'll use Soul Scream. And he already has a lot of turns as it is, but Soul Scream will give him an extra 4. So there's a chance he can have like 9 or 10 moves per round at low health. And if you fall here, you go all the way back to Moore's room before the second phase of the fight. Not to mention, he has a move that insta-kills a party member even if you guard with them. And you need all the turns you can in this fight. So, how did I do this? Well, I made Marth learn the Berserker archetype way back for more socialing, so I just equipped him with charge. And right before Louise was in his low health animation, I charged with all my party members and managed to deal enough damage to him to take him out while skipping the Soul Scream phase. Then, through anime logic, our Sky Runner turns into a giant archetype and slices Louise clean through the center. Well, I don't know if I'd call it clean, but yeah. Now with Louise defeated, I'm crowned king. And we even get a time skip of what happens to the party in the future. And then finally the credits roll. So, can you beat Metaphor ReFantazio by only using the merchant line of archetypes? Well, if you don't count the first couple hours of gameplay, sure. But I mainly did this challenge as a sort of way to warm up to Metaphor because it is a bit harder than Persona, I think. But after this, I still have some ideas for future runs in this game, so expect to see more of it in the future. Anyway, if you enjoyed, like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. But remember, most importantly, to have a fantastic day.